But there's some really interesting research on curiosity as well. It's not as well researched, but during COVID lockdown, we all had a lot more time. And what do we do with that time? And there was some interesting research that showed that people who were more curious and were happy to explore things at a regular basis, so there's an aspect of cadence about that too, having a regular curiosity about stuff showed that people had a greater mental health resilience during that period.
Hello and welcome to the Biohacker Podcast. I'm Azra Alagic, your host and founder of Biohacker. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach specializing in longevity for women, a health and wellness journalist, writer, corporate consultant, and a biohacking advocate. Biohacker is a space where we can explore ways to optimize our health to live well longer. Whether it's through improving our nutrition, exercising, cryotherapy, supplementation, technology, and more, I'll be bringing you information and interviews with the best longevity experts to help you understand what you can do to optimize your health, prevent disease, and slow down or even reverse the symptoms of aging by taking control of your unique bio-individuality. Want to know more? Let's dive in. Dianne, welcome to the Biohacker Podcast. You have lived a pretty extraordinary life, I must say. I feel like I'm an underachiever compared to what you've done. You're a sustainability expert. You've been a researcher. You've exposed yourself to extreme environments, and you've been an astronaut candidate. Not a claim that many people can make, that's for sure. Looking back, what has that journey taught you about what it really takes to thrive as a human?
Azra, it's great to join you today because I really love your podcast and the way you explore lots of different topics with your guests. So it's quite an honor to be on the podcast with you. And when you asked me about, I guess, the journey I've taken in life, and all of your listeners would have had their own different journeys and their own different adventures, I guess, I've been very much exposed to the concept that we often define our own limits. You know, one of the big lessons in life for me, with all the challenges I've put myself through and challenges I've faced in life, regardless of whether I had choice in them or not, was that we often constrain ourselves, especially as women. It's not unusual for women to fit within a very structured, I guess, vision of what we expect it to look like, act like, speak like, etc. And so I found that I'm 56, I think we're a similar sort of age, over my life, that the more I've just pushed that boundary a bit further, the more I've realized, that boundary is actually a lot further away than I thought. I can do a lot more than I expected, but it just took me trying first.
Yeah, I love that because it's so true. We don't often think about how we can push ourselves, and we get so caught up in our comfort zone and our regular day-to-day routines. But it seems like you regularly push yourself outside of those comfort zones.
I do. I think my friends think, oh, okay, that's what you're doing now. And I don't know what my mother thinks. I think she's quite proud of me, but sometimes I'm sure she thinks I wish she'd tone it down a bit. Actually, it's funny, Azra, when I was a little girl, my mother's quite religious, and she used to pray that God would give me confidence because I was very shy. I wouldn't go and approach people at parties. When you go to parties as a kid and there's lots of kids there, I'd be the quiet little girl in the corner. And now I think my mum does the opposite and prays it. He'll take some of that courage away.
She's like, "Who are you? What happened to that shy daughter of mine?"
Where did she go? But it's interesting. I talk about my mother now, but I think my father was one of the earlier influences in my life that allowed me to feel that I can achieve things. When I grew up in the 70s as a young girl, I wanted to play I've got a twin brother, and anything my brother was doing, I wanted to do. So he was, running out and going to play in the creek. I was going to go and get muddy in the creek too. That's fine. But then I wanted to play soccer and cricket because Dave was playing soccer and cricket. But girls didn't do that back in the 70s. So my dad went and coached the local boys cricket team. And because of that, I got at least the door opened. So it meant, of course, I had to train 5 times harder than any of the boys in the team because you're the coach's daughter, so you got it easy. So I had to show that, no, I'm working harder than all you boys to deserve my spot on the side. But he showed me that the door can be opened by some great guys in your life too.
And it's so great to have those role models to influence you and to show you what's possible, because you're right, we're very similar age. I'm 1 year, I think I've got 1 year up on you. I'm 57. And it's interesting because when I was younger, my mother was forever despairing over the fact that I was such a tomboy, that I was out on my horses, I was on my bike, I was constantly falling off, breaking my nose, breaking my arm. She had come home with bruises from hockey all over my shins. And you're never going to be a lady, she used to say. She's a, this sort of lovely Hungarian woman that has very traditional values. So I think it's, but my dad, he was the one that always, like similar to you, always pushed me outside of my comfort zones and really encouraged me to get out there and do what I wanted. So I think it's great that
You start to explore that idea of allowing people to explore what they're capable of. And I think
yeah.
I know one of the things that you're interested in is, what drives people in that as well. Like, how do you get to what gets you up for the day to achieve things? And I think curiosity is a strong driver for me, but also in life. If we're curious, we're open to exploring new ideas, we're open to trying different things. And then if we find something we're interested in, kind of think that if we've got a strong purpose, then that, we can always keep going when things get tough. And I can see one of the books on your bookshelf there, Atomic Habits. It really
Yes.
makes me think about, the way we cement things in, the little things we do, and they only have to be little steps as well. I know, James Clear is very much about those small steps as well, isn't it? It's like cementing them, getting them done, moving on to the next thing, and building on that sort of stuff. And once you've got them in there, they become quite powerful when you build that sort of thing into your life. But you got to want to do something. You've got to be curious about an idea first, and you need to be anchored to why you're doing it. If you don't have a strong purpose, it's going to be so easy to let I just don't feel like it today, just stop you from doing something.
Oh, look, I completely agree. And I love that you've brought up having curiosity as a key to really helping to drive your purpose in life, because purpose is so critical for longevity, I think. And there's lots of studies that have shown that that is important to have purpose in your life, particularly as you're getting older. I think so many people will retire and then seem to lose their identity because they're not defined by their work role anymore or their family. And it's really interesting to see how people age differently if they don't have their purpose. Have you experienced that yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, well, number one, that I've experienced it with the times when I found it difficult in different endeavors I was doing in life. Like, for example, one of the things I've been fortunate to do, and it was a big challenge, was to circumnavigate the world in a yacht race. So I've sailed around our planet over an 11-month period, every ocean, every continent, and a team to do this. And there were times we're out in the middle of the ocean, let's say the Southern Ocean, where you're closer to Antarctica than you are to Hobart. So really cold, big seas, just horrendous conditions. And you're having a day where everything is saturated, you've got 7 layers on, you're not gonna be able to have a hot shower, and you think, "Why am I here? I just can't." And you can't get off the boat, number one.
My worst
You're
nightmare.
you're there, you just gotta suck it up, you're there. But then it's about, okay, well, if I gotta get up and do this again, you gotta keep going till you get to the port. Why am I here? If you come back to the why you're here and what you wanna get out of it, even if it's just for that moment, what am I gonna get out of this moment? What can I learn? What can I experience or whatever? Because sometimes it's really hard to find that really big anchor in the difficult moments. So then it's like just it's almost like compartmentalizing that moment to be its own rich moment. And that's, I mean, I don't know how much you're into Buddhism and Zen philosophy or whatever, but I mean, being present is just a part of that, isn't it? If we can be in that present moment and allow that to be the thing that we're experiencing and learning from, then it's a lot easier to continue through. And then you'll get past that storm, like we did at sea. You're back on course and you've realigned as well with, this is why I'm here. I want to achieve this incredible thing. So that's okay. I've got through this bit.
And was that your personal driver that you wanted to achieve that?
Well, I actually, for the circumnavigation, I had a few drivers. So I'm a bit of a don't put all your eggs in one basket kind of person. One of that, I guess, that comes out in how I choose to do things as well. So for the circumnavigation, it was about trying to reflect a few things. One, I like an endeavor that challenges me physically and mentally and emotionally as well. Like, how can I grow? So I know that we only grow when we fail and challenge and learn. So we see this with trees. So there was a really interesting segue here, sidestep. There was a really interesting research piece that was done in space exploration where you might have heard of a biosphere, where basically enclosed habitat in the desert in the USA, where they had everything was able to be grown, all the water, everything completely enclosed habitat. And the people simulated being in space in this sort of habitat. Trees were even able to grow. But what they found was these trees, they grew fast and straight, but they didn't have any structure or rigidity about them. And so they collapsed really quickly. Why? Because they weren't exposed to the stress of wind. So
Okay.
we need a bit of stress
Yeah.
to grow and to have robustness, but it's then how we respond to that. So the tree is designed to be able to respond to that, but we need to be able to respond to that in a healthy way. So we need to be healthy to be able to do that. So sidestep there. I'm sure I'm sure you're already going, oh my gosh, I want to talk about that.
There's so many things I want to talk to you about today. But it's a really good point about resilience, which is something that you have focused a lot on in your life. And I think you've spent years really thinking about it, haven't you? And in your view, what are those core human things that we genuinely need to stay healthy? Because you're a biohacker as well. You've exposed yourself to extreme conditions and you focus very much on purpose as well. Run me through what your thoughts are around human survival and performance, because I don't know, navigating the world of a boat, that ain't survival, then I don't know what is.
It's interesting. When I was in the Mars astronaut program, so that was the Mars One mission. I was one of 100 people worldwide in a shortlist for Mars One, and we were on hold essentially, and I until the organisation was able to continue the selection process. But my mental attitude is to be ready, stay ready, and so I thought, well, I need to get myself Mars ready well before I was going to go or even be selected. So I spent 8 years doing a lot of self preparation for this. And the reason I'm saying this is because of I guess, almost like a methodology that I applied to getting ready, which I've kind of over the years adopted in how I live life. And that's based on the kind of three pillars of the way that NASA train their astronauts. And that's around team, technology, and self.
Okay.
So these are essentially elements of enablement. And if we think about that from a biohacking perspective as well, isn't it? It's all about technology. It's so much about the tech, whether that's the tests we can do, whether it's the wearables, whether it's access to things like red light or whatever it might be. Then there's the team, which is essentially community, but also the health practitioners you bring in your life. And then there's the self. And the self part is all about not just the physical, that's obviously an important part. You've got to be healthy and well for that, but it's also the mental. I spent a lot of time working on the mental health elements about what does an astronaut face going to space, but also potentially life on Mars, what that look like, the stress, the anxiety, the extreme expectation and lack of support and all that sort of stuff. So when it comes to resilience and how to prepare for a healthy, longer life, I kind of have adopted those pillars quite a bit. And so it's become just my way of living over time. The technology, the tests, etc. Great community around me, good health practitioners, and then continuing to look after self physically and mentally.
Let's dive in a little bit more into the mental health preparation that you had to do for that, because, gosh, I think even the thought of doing something like that requires a lot of mental resilience and self-belief. What did you do to prepare yourself to become mentally resilient for that?
Well, I tried to understand what it was that astronauts face just currently going to space. And the longest any astronaut's been in space has been, well, I think American astronauts, 12 months. There was a couple of that have done 12 months, but I think the Russians have done longer. And stress and anxiety, lack of sleep, all those sorts of things that create a lot of mental load, expectation as well. Like, you're here representing the world. What if I fail? What if so? Or fear of failure, all these sorts of things sound quite familiar for many women, I'm sure, especially when we go through menopause and perimenopause, we have these changes in life and changes in sense of self and so forth. They're quite similar, actually. Anyway, so when I mapped out what these things were and understood them, and I put myself through training with some of NASA's medical team, and I got trained on space medicine and advanced space medicine. So I understood what some of these things were. And then I started to bring my team, get the team part in. Who do I need to have that can help me take this journey because you can't solve these things alone. And so I sought people out who could work with me on my mental health. I saw a psychologist, psychoanalyst, and in fact, huge advocate of proactive mental health. How often do we wait till something goes wrong? We don't go seek assistance at all for our mental health. And yet we have regular checkups with the dentists every 6 months. Why on earth aren't we seeing someone for our mental health on a regular sort of basis as well? It's a bit like we take the car in for a service. This is a really important engine that I want to keep working really well. So I think having a really positive, proactive approach to our mental health is a good thing. So I started doing that regularly. I had to find someone who was going to be able to manage quite an unusual task. Hi, I'm your new client. This is my challenge. I could be going to Mars for the rest of my life. I want to work on my mental resilience.
What was the response?
It took like it does to find a good health practitioner.
Yeah.
You almost first date them, right? So, a couple of them, I was like, I don't think this is going to work. Look, it was lovely to meet you. I think we've got different approaches to a few things, and thanks very much. So it actually took a couple to find the right sort of person. And that is included with my endocrinology and bone mass and muscle mass health as well. Like I was trying, but it's a connection to find someone that's going to look after your whole of life needs as a medical practitioner's perspective. And there's not a lot of them out there, so you tend to
No.
have to specialize a bit. So I understood that astronauts lose about 20% of their bone mass in 6 months.
That's huge.
That's huge. For your listeners who aren't aware yet or mightn't have gone into perimenopause or menopause yet, that's what women can lose usually about 5 or 6 years through menopause and perimenopause. And so if I was going to lose that in 6 months, and at that stage I was in my mid-40s, so I knew I'd be going through perimenopause as well. I thought, oh, I don't like the sums.
Sounds like a double whammy, right?
Yeah, absolutely, I know. So I had a great GP at the time. I said, okay, I really need to find the best of the best here who's going to be open to work with me to work out how we can solve this difficult problem of building bone mass or working with this sort of unusual challenge where in maybe 10 years' time I'm living on Mars and I need to make sure I have all my bone mass still, that I can be functional, that I can be healthy and strong. And so I went and saw one guy and we did a DEXA and he looked at the results and they were, I was normal and healthy. And normally you'd walk away going, oh, great, happy days. But that's not what I was there for. I wanted to know my baseline so that then the conversation with him was, well, okay, well, I expect to be potentially in space in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe 20 years. I'm going to lose muscle mass and bone mass. How can I put bone mass on? And he asked me, oh, what's your age? And I told him I was in my mid-40s. He went, oh, look, you're a bit old for that. That's not going to work. I went, thank you very much.
You're not the guy for me, right?
I went and found another endocrinologist, and her attitude was, what an interesting challenge. Let's see what we can do. And so she was totally open. Here's that word curiosity again. Totally curious about, well, I'm used to working with women who are going through this anyway. You've just amped it up a little bit. What can we learn through this? So it was really fascinating. So thus again, get the right people on your team, that team part, and that's going to help you through your health journey to get your goal. What is it, your strong why? So the mental health side, found great practitioners there, but then I needed to do things that really helped me break down what were unconscious bias. And it's really hard to do that because when you self-reflect, you only see the things that, there's the ego and all of this sort of stuff. So the ego is constantly telling you things that are okay and not okay. And try and keep you in your own box. And so I needed to be able to find a way to break through that. And so I joined a group where it's basically a lot of group therapists and psychoanalysts, etc. They have an internal conference each year in Australia. They spend 5 days locked away together and they basically go through a whole lot of work to break themselves down, to understand their own, as psychologists and psychoanalysts, their own unconscious bias, so that when they're working with us as their clients, they're much more aware of how they might be speaking to us. They're much more aware of how their own biases might be inadvertently affecting that relationship. So it's fantastic that we know that our practitioners have this and do
Love
this.
that.
So they were very kind and let me join them. So for a number of years, I went and did this with them. and totally tore myself down. It just really breaks you down to your core self, and you really do see things about yourself that you mightn't always like. Maybe it could be around ageism or whatever it might be, because so many different people in the room had such a diverse experience, and some of the people in the room had gender issues that they had never really identified before, but the conversation and the engagement with everybody else, it was unavoidable right there, raw. And that's what I did for a number of years, to try and see what's the stuff that's not going to be helpful in a group environment when I am really isolated and can't have support from a psychologist on a couch. And that's, then I obviously brought those lessons into my one-on-ones when I have my psych to go, okay, well, we now know this about me.
What were those key revelations that you had during that process?
A lot of it was around how I felt about myself. And so self-identity, and
Yep.
identity is always a killer.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to label yourself, you're then starting to put structures around how, not just how you see yourself, but how you expect others to see you. And so that interrelationship, then the way you connect with other people, totally is affected by how you have put a label on yourself. So the labeling of me, of Dianne as an athlete, was Dianne as an academic or whatever, that affected how then I would engage with people who were not athletes or academics, because it tends to, as soon as you label you other, people who are not of your label are a different label. And so I had to learn how to let go of labels and to not care what label others were trying to put on me, because that would then affect that relationship or opportunity. You can't have a rich discussion or learn something about yourself or others if you're constantly saying, well, I'm sorry, we don't connect because we're a different family of some sort. That was the really big area, is to understand the label of who I was or how I saw myself, because it totally affected the way I engaged with others, even family.
Yeah, yeah. And family is a challenging one, I think, sometimes more often than anything else, because you bring a whole lot of baggage. And sometimes I think there's also that generational trauma that you can be carrying as well, that you might have to deal with. Do you think that not going through with ending up, on another planet, essentially, what impact did that have on you, and
Yeah.
actually, or not coming to fruition, essentially?
No, it's a really big point, Ezra. I mean, most of us in our life have had some big goals, whether that's to start a family or go out on your own and have your own business, and you could work for someone else for so long. Maybe I know many people who've been refugees, left their country forever and to move to Australia to settle for a safer, healthier, happier life. And so we've done some big, bold things, and sometimes they haven't worked out how we thought. And we've all been caught in those sorts of situations. And how do you move on from that? So that
Yeah.
that also taps back into that resilience. And when I remember I'd been in the Mars One program at that stage for 8 years when I heard that it was closing down. They emailed those of us in the 100 one night. It was October 2021. I remember it very, very, very clearly. It's quite someone else's email was going to control my fate. You open that.
Also because you had committed 8 years of your life
Yeah,
already towards this, so that's a huge
exactly.
amount of time you've committed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's absolutely right. What you invest in really matters. And obviously, very lucky that what I invested in, and it was not luck actually, what I was fortunate to do, the investment I made in myself, I knew was always going to pay benefits whether I went to Mars or not. I would be, if I didn't get to go to Mars, I would be one of the healthiest women on the planet. So that was just, and I would also have done some really cool stuff and learned some cool stuff. That's not a side. Yeah, that's pretty fun too. But yeah, so however, at that moment though, when you get that email, when you get the phone call, when you get the letter saying, sorry, it's not you, sorry, it's not going ahead, sorry, we pulled funding, whatever it is, it floors you. It's like if I was on the
Okay.
boat, it's like when the wind knocks your sail and the boat goes over. It's just completely floors you. And the night that I got that email, I didn't know what to do next. I was like, well, what do you do after a big goal closes before you're ready to? You haven't got to your achievement. Something stopped you from getting to where you wanted to. And then I really had to think about it. But I didn't have a breakdown or anything like that. In fact, I remember that night sitting on the side of my bed, and my father had passed away quite some time earlier. But I remember sitting on the side of my bed and sort of almost putting it out there to the universe or to Dad, wherever you were, Dad. And I'm saying, Dad, what do I do now? And there's nothing like planting something in the brain before sleep. It's so powerful. You've probably heard many podcasts and read stuff about how incredibly powerful our brain is. If we plant the right thing, the right question in our brain, the brain will start to solve it for you. And I remember waking up the next morning, and it was a bit like that. I woke up feeling pretty good after having felt devastated the night before. I woke up thinking, oh, and it was like I had this message in my brain that said, Dianne, what an incredible chapter of your
Yeah.
life. I wonder what's going to happen next. And so I just couldn't help myself but have a turn the page mindset to that. So which is about resilience, isn't it? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
there's going to be another chapter. This is not the end of my life. There'll be another chapter. And so when I turned the page metaphorically, what I allowed was the space then for something to start to write itself again. And I think the key there was that as well, that the end goal going to Mars was not what the why was. The why for me was much stronger. Going to Mars was the vehicle to achieve something. That wasn't the achievement in itself. And so I still had that stronger why of trying to do something powerful and important for the planet that could still happen with me on the planet. So it allowed me to think, okay, not straight away. I had my life shavasana moment where I was like, okay, time to integrate. You know, at the end of yoga, where
Yeah.
you do the best part of yoga, you lie down and you go,
Isn't it? So good.
totally. So I kind of took that. I allowed myself to have that time of integration where you need to create the calm after all of the movement, all of the physicality, all of that tension to allow everything to integrate. And so I kind of allowed that to happen in life before then taking the movement forward. A really big lesson. It's so easy to rebound onto something else. We jump from, especially in modern society, right? It's pace, 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 pace. If we don't allow time, if we don't allow calm, if there's, and I can see some lovely space on your bookshelf. If the bookshelf is full of books, there's no room for new books. So the same sort of thing. You've got to create some space.
Yeah, yeah. Always have to have some room for the new books, definitely.
Exactly.
I want to dive in a little bit more regarding what you went through physically in terms of your health in preparing for that, because I'm really keen to understand how you're able to transform yourself physically to be able to prepare for going on such an amazing, unusual adventure, and how that has then influenced you moving forward as well in terms of managing your health and being proactive about your health management.
Number one was sleep. I learnt pretty quickly that astronauts have a significantly shorter sleep window in space than they do on Earth. So if you're getting an hour, hour and a half sleep less each night, then that's going to have a significant health impact. And so I wanted to learn, how can I biohack sleep? And so obviously got all the wearables. I was using an Aura ring about 10 years ago. So like in the very first models that were really chunky. So I really got into tracking everything around my sleep and understanding about light, diet, all this sort of stuff. And we've learned a lot more about that now. But I needed to be able to train myself to be able to sleep, polyphasic sleep, all sorts of different types of sleep, so I can maximize my body's ability to recover. Because that's when we recover, as you know, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners already know this. We don't build our muscle, for example, during wakefulness. The body does all of that when we're asleep. We give it the stimulus, we give it, torn muscle fibers, etc. We give it its fuel, but it does the work of the building when we're asleep. So you got to maximize the right sort of sleep, quality of sleep, deep sleep versus REM versus whatever. So, and all of it has its function. So yeah, so I really focused on sleep as my first, and then I started working on the rest. And then it was about bone, and then it was strength as well, and diet, aspects of diet. The sort of exercise regimes changed for me as well. Before I was in the Mars program, I used to do lots and lots of running. I ran marathons, I even did ultras. But I learnt that anytime we run over about an hour, if this is obviously athletes who are doing this for many, many, many years. But if you run for extensive periods for more than an hour for many years, you'll find that you start to lose bone and muscle mass. And going to space, that was not going to be for me. So I started capping my running. So I wasn't running more than an hour. You can still get a 10K run in an hour, no problems at all. But I really focused on strength training. Strong, 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 strong. And as women, now I'm so fortunate in some ways. The focus that I had on all this stuff to make sure that I was Mars ready, to know that I would be having less sleep, to know that I would be likely losing the significant amount of bone and muscle mass, to know that my hearing and vision, all those sorts of things would be deteriorating in space, to have focused and intentional work to build those and improve those, just put me in such a great position to go through perimenopause and menopause.
Sure would have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mars program.
Yes, Mars program. Exactly. But now, but it made me more aware as well. And I think as women, we don't get the chance to be exposed to information about how our health will change, our body will change when we go through menopause and perimenopause. We get told general stuff, or we have these myths about hot flushes or mood swings and things like that. They're real things. I'm not saying they're not, but it's kind of like almost a myth as opposed to, well, here's the spectrum and the reality of what your body's going through with all these hormonal changes. This is how this can play out in your body. And the same sort of thing in space. We have almost exactly, it's quite extraordinary, almost exactly the same sorts of challenges when we go to space, not driven by hormones, but just driven by microgravity and a lot of other stuff. So I learned to understand why it happened, and then it gave me a chance to work on the opposite. So for example, for bone and muscle mass, we lose so much of it in space because we have a lack of weight. Our bodies, we can't do weight-bearing exercise because we don't have much mass anymore. We don't weigh anything. In space, we have zero mass. On Mars, we have a bit, but we haven't got a third of Earth. So we don't have like 1G, we don't have gravity like we do on Earth. So you have to create gravity. You have to create force. You have to increase the amount of force. A bit like the trees that I talked about earlier. Our bones aren't going to grow unless we give them some sort of force, like the wind that creates stronger trees. So I started introducing the sorts of exercise that would create greater force on bone. And they're simple hacks. Most people can do them or build up to them. It's skipping, it's jumping, it's anything which creates a force through the main joints. And for women, hip is the big one. It's all very well to have a strong spine. Great, but that's probably not what's going to break first. It'll be your hip. So, and to be able to build the bone on the hip takes a lot more work and it's very focused. And so I started digging into what sort of research we've seen in bed rest studies in elderly who have obviously had a lot of diminished bone mass over time. How have we seen them be able to grow bone or improve their bone mass or reduce it, even declining? And so a lot of work on hip-related strength training. So if women aren't picking up weights now and doing things like squats or leg press or leg exercise, things that are working on the hip, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Absolutely. I'm sure you probably talk about strength training with so many of your clients.
I'm really passionate about strength training, and particularly for women, because some women tend to be a little bit scared to weights. They think they're going to get bulky.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I've been doing strength training for, gosh, I don't even know how many years now, and I'm certainly not bulky. I like to be bulkier, but that's just the nature of, my metabolism. It's the nature of, a result of my age, and, obviously trying to make sure that I get enough protein as well. It's really important from a nutritional perspective that we're fueling our bodies to be able to achieve that muscle mass. Did you find that for yourself?
Yeah, as well. Totally. I completely changed the way I ate as well. Protein became the primary driver of my meals. When I learned that the diet on Mars was likely to be mostly plant-based, but supplements with insects and algae, and that was so we would get sufficient protein because, bless plants, you need to eat a lot of plants to get the right sort of nutritional balance. So, but a lot of meat is not, obviously it's got to be really good quality meat, organic, grass-fed, et cetera, et cetera. So that sort of, I really focused on that in my diet because I knew it wasn't going to be necessarily always available to me on Mars. But if I could build it now, if I could use what I do have today to ensure that I can maximize who I could be before I go to Mars, I could live with a lesser protein quality diet because I built everything already. So yeah, meat of different types, fish in particular, I love seafood. It's a big part of my diet as much as I can. But red meat, quality red meat. And I started to look at the way my body responds to different foods. So probably like a number of your listeners who are biohackers, I've done the CGMs, I've done so much blood panels. I did an experiment years ago that I called 3 months, 3 ways. And it was when some of these diets were really just coming into fad. So, keto and paleo had been around for a bit. The carnivore was just coming up. And I thought, well, okay, well, that's great. And they probably all taste fantastic and have some benefits, but how does my body respond to it? So I went and had blood panels done, and I think I took about 7 vials of blood. And I did 1 month. First month was focused on paleo. So a traditional sort of paleo diet, lots of vegetables, good meat, etc. Then did that for a month, maintained It's exactly the same sleep pattern, same exercise pattern, etc. So try and remove all the things that could affect results. Then I had the blood panel done again after that first month, washout period. Then I went into a month of keto, blood panel done again, washout period. Then I did a month of carnivore. And as well as assessing all of the different biomarkers from my blood panels, which is everything from inflammation markers right through to just simple blood chemistry, I was doing a mental health checker as well to see, does my mental function alter during this period as well? What about cognitive load? So I was doing all these tests for cognitive function. So I really dial right into how my body responded best to food. And I think it's something it's so easy to jump onto the latest trend.
Yeah.
And, this is the new diet at the moment. Or what about this? Or so-and-so lost all this weight. But it mightn't work for you.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, because we're so by individual. So which one worked for you? Which one was the best one? What was the result?
Well, two different. I ended up moving to a blend that was part keto and part carnivore. So I moved to what was predominantly meat-based diet or animal-based, so not just meat. So it was, fish, dairy, etc. But I found my mental health responded better with a higher fat protein, by a higher fat content.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, exactly, with what the brain goes with blood-brain barrier better. So I found just having slightly higher fatter foods, so some salmon is fantastic, lamb versus lean red meats or chicken, or a blend of it, or make sure I eat the chicken skin. Chicken skin's great, nothing wrong with the skin. It's got collagen in it as well, so there's a lot of good quality chicken skin too. So I really made sure I focused on that, and I found that from a physical perspective, the high protein diet made me stronger. I was able to respond better from an exercise perspective, but from the mental health side, I needed a higher fat diet. But that was me. That's because I tracked it and I knew what I responded to.
And I think it's great that you tracked it, because you're right, so many people do dive into the latest fad without considering what's their baseline biometrics and then measuring it, or even just doing something simple like stopping and tuning into your body to see how your body is reacting, because your body will tell you if it doesn't like something, for sure.
Absolutely. And I know that we were talking a little bit earlier about the fantastic retreat that you ran just recently, and I love the fact that you had the attendees come and do DNA profiling, microbiome, and the hormone panel as well, so that you know what you're walking. You've got a baseline for everything, and then you've got something that you can compare against. You can see how you respond to different things in life, and you can also help identify what the issue might be. So, but if you're not looking, you don't know. It's a very mathematical thing as well. My university degree in my bachelor's was mathematics. So I'm a mathematician, and statistics was my major. And so if you don't count it, it doesn't count.
Yes, that's what I say, test, don't guess, right?
Exactly.
As the cliche goes.
Absolutely. But I think you're right that, as you were saying before about your body tells you, I don't track everything all the time anymore.
No,
I've learned over it causes a bit of anxiety too. If you like, I must get that number. Like, people get obsessed with their sleep score numbers. It's great to start to understand, use it as something to help you understand and learn. And once you've learned, you should maybe check in with it every year or whatever it is, whatever you need to go, I think I need to just check that for a while. But if you're doing it obsessively for years, I wonder about how much you're listening to what your body is telling you.
Well, you're relying on technology rather than tuning in and listening to your body. And sometimes I do wonder whether, if you become obsessive with the data, that you end up creating other problems from a neurosis perspective and anxiety perspective. I know some people who became so anxious about their sleep score that they weren't able to sleep at all. It completely had a reverse impact on them. And they're like, taking this off, that's it, I'm not wearing it anymore. And they're able to start sleeping well again. It might be the placebo effect, it might be perception, but you've got to listen to your body, and you absolutely need to do what's right for you, for sure. You speak a lot about adaptability, and I kind of feel like that always partners up a little bit with what you mentioned about curiosity. Do you think that learning to adapt physically, mentally, emotionally is one of the missing ingredients in aging well?
I think so, and it's interesting. I know we've talked about purpose before, and I think there's an aspect of community as well. Like community and purpose together for me has been demonstrated in the research. What I've seen that shows longevity is very connected to those from a correlative perspective. But there's some really interesting research on curiosity as well. It's not as well researched, but during COVID lockdown, we all had a lot more time. And what do we do with that time? And there was some interesting research that showed that people who were more curious and were happy to explore things at a regular basis. So there's an aspect of cadence about that too. Having a regular curiosity about stuff showed that people had a greater mental health resilience during that period. So it's a great reflection on we had a time to really explore this stuff, almost like the experimental period. Let's translate that to real life. COVID's gone, ladies and gentlemen, from the lockdown perspective, but we've basically almost trapped ourselves into a different way of living now. Just keep a curiosity about stuff because I think we'll find that the brain loves novelty. And the more we feed that novelty, the more we're excited and interested in life. And the more we're interested in life, the greater that actually has a positive influence on our well-being, our mental health, as well as longevity. People with a more positive mindset towards stuff tend to have a longer lifespan too.
Yeah. We touched earlier on comfort, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on whether you think that modern life has become way too comfortable. I mean, it certainly hasn't for you because you're always pushing yourself outside of the comfort zone by the sounds of things. And I can relate to that because I'm a little bit like that as well. I always like to challenge myself. But there are a lot of people out there that do get trapped in their comfort zone. And what are your thoughts on the impact of that?
Yeah, and it's attractive. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, I don't mind sticking my feet up on the couch occasionally and just
Yeah, of
having a
course.
veg out. Why not? You got to have a bit of balance there. You know, the trees I talked about before, they get exposed to wind. Imagine if the wind was smashing them all the time, they're just going to bend over. So, there's a balance between having tension from wind and allowing the time to grow. It's like our bodies with sleep and building muscle mass. Tension from the activity and the calm to allow that to then the relaxation period to allow that to actually integrate it and grow. We can't just grow with one. We need both. So absolutely we need to be out of our comfort zone. We need to be pushing our bodies or our minds or whatever. But then we do need a little bit of time out to allow that to integrate into our lives, the Shavasana period of yoga, to then continue the movement. But yoga doesn't end with Shavasana. That's just the integration to allow you to move out of the room and bring that stuff into life. And I think we get quite caught in I'm really loving this lie down bit. This lie down bit at the end of yoga.
It's
This
easy,
is the
right?
gold. It's the only reason I'm here. But it's that when we're on when I'm sailing around the world in a 70-foot yacht with 20 other people, the calm is not the reward of the storm. The calm was when we built and got ready for the next storm. So we needed the calm, absolutely, but it's because we knew there'd be more storms coming and we knew there would be discomfort. And that's the reality of life and allowed us to achieve something quite incredible. I never expected to circumnavigate our planet. It was not on my when a little girl list of when I grow up I want to be. It was something that just happened and it was a bit like going to Mars. It was a vehicle for me to try and achieve something bigger than something for me. But if we don't live outside our comfort zones, a boat was never built to be moored at the harbour. We don't explore an incredible world.
So true. So many more people need to go exploring more, I think. Absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
exploration, it's a fantastic way to just bring a tiny bit of novelty into life too. It doesn't have to be to get on a boat and sail from one side of the planet to the other. Exploration could just be, I'm going to take a different route to work today. Oh my gosh, there's some shops I never saw before. Oh my God, look at those amazing flowers over there. So exploration can be a really small thing, or it can be a deep dive in. There's go boots and all, ladies and gentlemen. Get on that boat and go. It's up to you what you choose to do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, for me, I would never get on a boat and navigate around the world because I'm just not a water baby. I would rather hike around the world because I'm a Taurine and I like solid earth
Lovely.
under my feet. So I would do it that way. And just the thought of being caught out in the ocean in a perfect storm kind of freaks me out just quietly.
100%
Been
understand.
watching too many Hollywood blockbuster movies, I think, perhaps. Got a few friends that are sailors and some of the stories that they've told me, I'm like,
Oh,
no thanks.
yeah, that's my partner's attitude as well. But when she saw some of the images of what we would be going through, and then afterwards as well, and during the race, she's like, that's all you. I love you dearly, and I will meet you in many of the ports and have a wonderful holiday in between. But I am not getting on that boat.
I'll have a wine waiting for you.
Totally. It's exactly what I was like.
I think that you bring some really interesting perceptions and tips to midlife women as a result of the training that you've done, as a result of the resilience, that you've experienced through everything that you've done, whether it's circumnavigating the world, whether it's doing the Mars program. What would be your key tips for midlife women based on what you've lived through so far in terms of ensuring that they can age in a healthy way?
Oh, gosh. I think one of them would be around what's normal. Many of the things I've done in life, not normal. I'm sure.
That's okay.
And that's okay. But what it also makes me think of is that, just because somebody else thinks this is normal, is that optimal as well? If you think about our health and the way that people expect, that, we get to a certain age and we're just going to lose some bone mass. We get to a certain age and, perhaps my hearing is going to get a bit worse. We get to a certain age and my knees are going to get a bit achy and I probably need a knee. Why? Does it have to be that way? And so I found during all that time getting ready to go to Mars in particular, I challenged what was thought to be normal. I wasn't going to allow that to stop me achieving what I wanted to do. And I think if you anchor to your strong why, if you know what your strong why is again, and you've got that team, that core community behind you that can support you, let your curiosity be your guide, not what's normal. Once again, don't constrain yourself to what others or yourself thought was normal, because we've got one life. Let's really live it.
Yeah, completely. And I think that what's normal for you is not normal for someone else either. And we've got to find our own journey and figure out what it is that really excites us and creates passion in our life.
100% excites. If it doesn't make you want to just smile when someone mentions the topic and you just feel yourself smiling, even inside, if you don't smile physically, hang on to that, because that's just something you like. Be curious about that. Explore that a bit further.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just reflecting back on something that a former jealous colleague of mine said to me, that whenever I talk about horses, he said my eyes just light up. Because
Get on the horse.
Yeah, I love horses. I'm a horse rider. I have horses, and I'll quite often go on horse riding holidays, and it's what lights me up. I really love it. It's one of my passions. And
fantastic.
You've got to find what really excites you. We're going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here, but you've done extensive work on sustainability and food systems as well. As I said, an overachiever, listeners, an overachiever. And we've touched on some of the dietary experimentations that you've done, whether it's paleo, carnivore, and so on.
Yeah.
But there's some real challenges these days, I think, in the modern world regarding our food system, regarding the quality of our food, regarding the source of our food. What concerns you the most about the way we eat today and how that impacts how we're aging, but also in terms of our health?
Yeah, well, and our planet's health as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it comes down to being mindful. How mindful are we about what we eat, where our food's from? I think there's a lot of disconnect between what we put in our mouth and where it was grown or produced, or there are so many people that wouldn't know what's on their plate, how it was made. And that disconnect with, if people don't understand the origin of something, there's not as much connection to it, and so there's not as much respect for it. And that includes how they eat it. So the more you understand your food, the more you know about it, the less you waste it as well. There's enough research in food waste, which is my PhD is in food waste. So across the from a systemic perspective, and I've done a lot of work in this area for decades. The more we understand where our food is from, even if we just grow some herbs at home, we actually eat more of our food. We don't waste as much, and which makes a difference as well to our nutritional content and consumption. We have a stronger connection to what food is if we can grow any of our own food. But now not everybody has the capacity to do that. You might live in an apartment like I do, or you might not have in your area space to grow something, or if your house isn't structured that way, or the environment or whatever, the climate. Then we do have a choice as consumers. We can purchase food and let our wallets help support good farming practices, because there are some great farmers in Australia. There are some great small scale producers and larger scale too that do have free range animals. Well, in Australia, we're quite lucky that way. US, different game. Majority of the US, a lot of the animals are not free range, whereas here I think about 80% of our beef is grown free range. So it's huge. So we can make a choice by our purchases about what we buy. And then thus you're going to find that if we're buying food that's grown organically, that's not grain fed unless it's just grain finished, grass fed, free range, etc., that actually affects the nutritional quality of it too. And the stresses. Food tastes different and the nutritional quality is different too when it's been under stress. So we find that you're going to be able to have a healthier life if you can actually have much more mindful purchasing as well as eating.
I'm very fortunate to live on acreage, and I'm not a great gardener by any means, but I do grow herbs pretty well and still trying to learn how to grow tomatoes. If anybody's got any great tips about that, please pop them in the comments section. But I'm learning, right? And I get great satisfaction out of it. And the difference in the flavor and
gosh,
when you have an organic homegrown fruit and veg, it's just next level. It's so good for you.
And we've found as well that over decades, so because of poorer, and it was, educational, we know a lot more now, poorer farming practices of the past, we have depleted a lot of our soil's nutrients. And so anything that grows in soil is only going to be given what's in the soil. So that's why people have to put fertilizer, et cetera, in, but that doesn't necessarily solve all the problems. So a lot of our fruit and vegetable is significantly less nutritionally dense than it was 50 years ago. Because of this. So we really need to think about how well our food is being looked after, because that's going to do the same thing for us. That's going to give us our nutrients.
Yeah, completely agree. What are the non-negotiable things that you personally prioritize in your own health for energy and longevity?
Sleep. Sleep. And sleep. No. So sleep is absolutely number one. In fact, I'm probably that boring person that'll start looking at her watch at about 8 o'clock at a party or something. I go, going soon. I'd like to go to bed.
I'm the same.
I love going to bed. It's like when you're camping, it's the best, right? You're really responding to nature. And so you tend to go to bed when the sun's gone down. And you get up when the sun gets up. Usually pretty refreshed, even if it's not the most comfortable. You still wake up, I feel mentally pretty good. And so sleep is always number one for me. Look after that. And then it's physical exercise. How can I make sure I respect and love my body and make sure it can look after me as well and love me? So, and that then gets mirrored by what I eat. So sleep, move, eat.
Love it. If there's one message you wish that every woman understood about living well longer, what would it be?
I think going back to that discussion about what's normal, don't limit yourself to what others or you may have perceived in the past to be normal. Allow yourself to become the best that you can be. Push that boundary. It's only there because someone else has said it for you.
Fabulous. Dianne, it's been just such a delight to chat to you today and explore your life and hear what you've been through and what you've challenged yourself through, because it's been such an amazing adventure and it's been so inspiring to hear your stories. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Azra. It's been great to chat.
Well, that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And if you'd like to learn more about biohacking, go ahead and sign up on my website at www.biohack-her.com to get a free copy of my 5 top biohacks to get you kick-started. While you're there, you can also check out my blog page for more tips on biohacking. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, you can do so on Apple, Spotify, and Google Play. Let us know if there's anyone you'd like us to talk to in particular, and we'll endeavour to get them on the podcast. Until next time, remember to live well longer.